Oh hey, it's Sabrina Owen. So today I'm sharing with you my September wrap-up. So for the month of September I read a total of 5 books, and it really only felt like I read 2 books, so I thought that I didn't have a good reading month, but overall 5 books isn't that bad. So the first book that I read for this month is The Coldest Girl in Coldtown by Holly Black. So this is a paranormal / fantasy YA book, and it is a book that I listened to on audiobook. And at first I didn't really like the book. It was hard to get into. It was a very slow beginning. I think what contributed to this was the fact that the author, or the narrator, I didn't really like the voice of the narration. And so if you listen to audiobooks, you'll know, or maybe you'll figure out that the narrator's voice plays a big role in whether or not you'll like the book, and it can make or break it. And for me, I gave this book 4 to 5 stars. I feel like I think it was more 3.5 stars for me. I would have given it more stars if I had liked the narrator or if I had actually read a physical copy. But on Goodreads I gave it 4 to 5, but I think really as I'm thinking about it, I probably feel like it deserved 3.5 stars. Alright, the next book that I read in the month of September is Ready Player One by Ernest, Cline. I cannot begin to tell you. I read this on my iPad, on my tablet, so I had an ebook version. I don't have a physical copy, but I'm gonna get one because I loved the book so much. This was my favorite book that I read for the whole entire month of September, and it's definitely one of my favorite books that I read over the whole course of 2015. So read Ready Player One if you have not yet. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It's basically a nostalgic book that references a lot of 80s movies and video games, and the premise of the story is it's futuristic, so it's about 30 or 40 years in the future, and there's a kid who's really poor and he lives in the Stacks, which is basically a trailer park, and his parents have died, so he lives with this aunt that treats him really terribly. And so in this futuristic world, there's a virtual online world that everyone goes and visits to, and you can pay money. So if you're wealthy in real life, and then you can be wealthy in the game, and you can basically play more levels and become a better player. And so the premise of the story is there's a billionaire who created this virtual world who has hidden an Easter egg in there, and if you find this Easter egg, then you can inherit his entire fortune. So he passes away and leaves behind billions of dollars, and so if you can figure out how to find this Easter egg, then you win his money. And so that's basically what happens. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's such a great book, and I haven't heard fantastic things about Armada, which is another book written by the same author, so I'm not sure if I'm going to read that, but I really did love Ready Player One. I highly recommend it. It is like dystopian / fantasy. I think it's so good. I loved it so much, and I would highly recommend it. The next book that I read for this month, or the month of September, is The Swiss Family Robinson by Johann David Weiss, and I gave this book 4 to 5 stars. I didn't realize that this was a classic for a really long time, and a little girl, she's about 10, she said this was her favorite book, so she wanted me to read it, and little did I know that I actually own the movie. I didn't even know that. So The Swiss Family Robinson is about a family who they're traveling across, I think, the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, I think so. And they end up getting shipwrecked, and they are on this island, and they call it New Switzerland. And so basically they have no one to come and rescue them, so they basically build a life on this island. And the book is about their adventures as a family, and you kind of watch them grow and experience cool things and plants and animals. And so it's a really good book. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I will. It's on my list of things to do. I gave this book 4 to 5 stars. I think it's so great for children especially. As an adult, I kind of found myself being like, okay, let's move it along, and skimming some of the pages. But overall, it's a really great book, and I would highly recommend it. The 4th book that I read for the month of September is Shanghai Girls by Lisa C. I really loved this book. This book really sparked my love, or re-sparked my love, should I say, for historical fiction. I have always loved historical fiction. When I first joined Goodreads and started watching YouTube, which was about 3 or 4 years ago, I was really into historical fiction, and for some reason this year and last year I kind of stopped reading historical and I started reading more dystopian and more paranormal books. And so I listened to this book on audiobook, and I loved the narrator. I loved the person who read the book to me, because it was so realistic and it was so believable whenever she was telling the story of these girls. And so basically, Shanghai Girls is set in Shanghai, and it's a historical fiction book about these two sisters who come from what you think of as a wealthy family in Shanghai. And so obviously the currency is different, and this is set in like 1930s in Shanghai. And so in Shanghai they're wealthy, but in the US, since the currency is different, they're actually pretty poor. And so their father loses all their money, their family money, and they end up being sold to a Chinese family that lives in Hollywood, or lives in California. So this story is about their journey to getting to America and their life there and their family and being in an arranged marriage. And it was so good. I loved it so much. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And there's actually a second book, so I think this is a duology. I haven't listened to it yet. I'm like the 3rd person in line to check out the book, but I loved it. I loved the narrator, and I thought it was a fantastic book. And the last book that I read, that I recently finished, I think I finished a couple days ago, was Beautiful Creatures by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stohl. This is the first book in the Castor Chronicles. The only reason why I decided to listen to it on audiobook was because my library didn't have a hold. Like, all of the really popular books right now are on hold like crazy, and I didn't want to wait. I wanted to listen to something now while I had to drive to and from work, because I travel really far for work. I travel so often, and so I wanted to be able to listen to something. And so I found Beautiful Creatures, and I was like, sure, let's give it a try, because I've heard mixed reviews. Some people love it, some people hate it. I'm actually right in the middle. So Beautiful Creatures, before I get into my thoughts and feelings about it, I'll just tell you a little bit about the story. Castor Chronicles, Beautiful Creatures is it's a paranormal fiction fantasy novel, I think, yeah, young adult. And so the point of view is from a young 16-year-old boy named Ethan Waite, and he meets this girl named Lena, and you find out that she has powers. She's a witch, but they call them casters because they cast spells. And her whole family is descend from casters. And so he meets this girl, and it's set in like Virginia or South Carolina. I think that's where it's set. So everyone has a southern type accent. And basically it's a 4-book series. So the first book is basically just her and Ethan getting to know each other, falling in love, and about Lena turning 16. This whole book is like leading up to her 16th birthday. And on your 16th birthday, all casters have to choose between being light and dark. And so at the end of the book, you find out what happens. I'm not going to spoil anything, but let's just jump into my thoughts of the book now. So overall, the reason why I gave this book 3 stars out of 5 is because I think I would have given it 1 more star, a 4-star, if I had read a physical copy, because I did not really like the narrator's voice. I did not like the person who read the book. It was just ridiculous and cheesy, and it was just such a stereotype of what Southern people sound like, and I didn't like it. And so the writing was pretty decent. There were a little bit of inconsistencies that I didn't really like. One of the things that I didn't enjoy, or I didn't really find believable, was that the main character, or the protagonist, Ethan, didn't really feel like a true 16-year-old boy. I had a hard time believing that if you had just swapped out the name and put a girl, I would have been believable. You know what I mean? So I didn't like that about the book. Some parts were really slow paced, and so I just had a hard time finishing it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I will probably continue on to read the second book, and if the second book is just as mediocre, then I probably won't finish the series. But if it's better, then I'll keep going and finishing it. But I feel like the world building and everything is pretty cool. There are some things that don't make sense, but overall it's a pretty decent series. And if you're into, you know, witches and spells, and you want a series that has a protagonist that is a male perspective instead of a female, then go ahead and check it out. You might like it. So that is everything that I read for the month of September. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I will be uploading my October TBR very soon, and I'll see you later. Thanks for watching.